Hello, everyone, and thank you for your patience as we've been a little bit delayed starting today. So thank you. I'd like to welcome you all to today's webinar on the topic of support for veterans and their families. This webinar is brought to you by Services Australia's Financial Information Service. My name is Phil, and I'll be one of your presenters today, along with my colleague Sam. Before we get into the topic for today, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands we all live on. I'm coming to you from the lands of the Wanneroo people in the Hunter Valley of New South Wales. I would like to extend Services Australia's respects to elders past and present of all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander nations. I would also like to extend those respects to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people that are with us today. As an additional item, I would also like to show respect and give thanks to all who have served in our Defence Force and their families. I acknowledge the unique nature of military service and the sacrifice demanded of all who commit to defend our nation. Financial information service officers like Sam and myself can help you build your financial literacy, help you make informed financial decisions, and help with your financial needs. As an information service, we don't provide financial advice or financial planning. So as an example, we can explain the risks and advantages of options such as investing in shares or investing in property, but instead of telling you which one to pick, we leave you with the tools and knowledge to make informed decisions for yourself. It's a free, confidential service available to all Australians. To help out with our presentation today, we have a number of FIS staff here to answer questions that you may have. At the top right of your screen, you should see a Q&A icon. It kind of looks like a speech bubble. You can use this feature to ask questions that you may have throughout the presentation. If you see a question where you think, I'm kind of curious about that myself, you can click on the thumbs up icon to support that question. Our team will then respond to the questions, either publicly or privately. But can I please ask that you only use your first name or you send your question anonymously, and that you don't include personally identifiable information in your questions. The information in today's webinar is correct as of today's date, that being the 30th of October 2025. This is especially important for any of you that are watching a recorded version of this webinar. So please ensure that you visit our website for current information, as our payment rates and thresholds can change in the future. Okay, let's make a start on the info for today. When you exit the services, depending on your specific circumstances, you may be able to access assistance from the Department of Veterans Affairs, DVA, or Services Australia, or potentially even both. A lot of the information we provide today will be around the Services Australia side of things, but it is also important to know that we can assist you to access DVA services as well. Across our service delivery network, so at all of our face-to-face service centres and also in our mobile service centres, we provide what's called a standardised service offer, where we can assist you by helping you to connect to the DVA phone line. We can help you create and navigate a My Service account, help you access the DVA website, print forms and documents. We can also take documents and forward them to DVA, and we can assist with connecting you with DVA support services such as Open Arms, the Veterans Families Counselling. In addition to that, we have an additional service called the Veterans Information Service that is at 22 of our regional service centres, where we also can answer questions about DVA payments and services, advise you of your rights, obligations and the complaints process, support you to identify and access services of pension and welfare officers in ex-service organisations so you can get assistance through them. And we can also support you with identifying and accessing specialist areas of DVA or other government and non-government agencies. So looking at some of the Services Australia stuff, we have payments available for many different scenarios and stages of life. So you might find that you have a handful of options or payments available to you depending on what's happening in your world. If you're 22 years or older and looking for work, you might be eligible for Jobseeker payment, including where you can't actually work or study for a while because you're sick or injured. Depending on the nature of your illness or your capacity to work, there may also be the option of disability support pension. AusStudy is a payment for those over 25 years of age and planning to study, or if you're a younger person looking for work or studying, Youth Allowance may be the best fit. I'll get my words out right in a moment. If you can't work while you have young children, you may be eligible for a parenting payment, which sits alongside family tax benefit and potentially childcare subsidy. If you're caring, you may be eligible for carer payment or the carer allowance. And of course, we have age pension for older Australians. In addition to our payments, Medicare and also concession cards provide much needed assistance with health services, and child support can help separated parents determine the financial support each person is required to contribute to support their children. You can find more information about all of our payments and services on our website, also payments and services from DVA on the DVA website. So please make sure that you take a look. But we'll have a closer look at some of the Services Australia ones now. Let's start with Jobseeker payment. This payment provides financial help if you're looking for work and you're between the ages of 22 and age pension age. It's also for those who are unwell or injured and can't do their usual work or study. With it, you'll be assessed against an income and an asset test, and you also need to meet Australian residency rules. To receive Jobseeker payment, you'll be required to participate in activities that increase your chances of finding work. This is called meeting your mutual obligation requirement. Of course, mutual obligation requirements differ depending on each individual situation, and it's important to note that there are also some possible exemptions from those obligations depending on your circumstances. If you've received a redundancy or any other lump sum payment when you left the service, you may have a possible waiting period before any support payments can actually commence. We'll discuss waiting periods in a little bit more detail later on. Workforce Australia. So to receive a Jobseeker payment, you need to be connected to a Workforce Australia provider. This can either be online or with a face-to-face provider. Workforce Australia is a place Australians can search and apply for jobs or find more information on pathways to employment. If you're connected to a Workforce Australia online provider, you'll need to create what's called a profile and negotiate a job plan. A couple of slides ago, we mentioned mutual obligation. They're tasks and activities that you agree to do to help you to find a job. Those obligations may include meeting a job search requirement, attending appointments, going to job interviews, accepting job offers, that sort of thing. You agree to your obligations when you agree to your job plan. If you're not meeting your obligations, your payment can actually be put on hold, reduced, or cancelled. But it's also important to note that the requirements can be more flexible if you're over 55 years of age, you're the principal carer of a young child, or you've got a medical condition. There are many ways to find employment opportunities. The most common, of course, is using the internet and or job search apps on your phone. If you've been made redundant, left the services, now unemployed, that sort of thing, you may be extremely stressed and in a really vulnerable state. When looking for work, please be wary of common scams that often are published on social media, advertising great ways of making money quickly or amazing work from home opportunities. They're targeting people that are in your circumstances and situation. So please be extra careful. And remember, if something sounds amazing and too good to be true, you need to do some extra research about it. If you're thinking of starting study or an apprenticeship, there are payment options for you. AusStudy may be payable if you're over 25 and a full-time student in an approved course or an Australian apprenticeship. AbStudy is a payment available for Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander students or apprentices and can help with things like school fees, boarding fees, living costs, etc. Youth allowance is a little different. There's a number of ways you can be eligible for youth allowance, and it includes things like if you're aged between 16 and 21, looking for full-time work or undertaking approved activities, if you're aged 18 to 24 and studying full-time, or if you're between 16 and 24 and doing a full-time apprenticeship. Now, depending on the type of payment you're claiming from us and your individual circumstances at the time, there may be waiting periods or preclusion periods. So for example, depending on income and asset limits, you may be required to serve a possible waiting period before your payments actually commence. We'll take a quick look at some of those waiting periods next, but make sure you also visit our website for more information about possible waiting periods and the income and asset tests that might apply to your individual circumstances. On the screen now are some of the waiting periods that can apply. There's an income maintenance period, which looks at leave paid when you leave the service. The liquid asset waiting period considers the cash you have on hand. And then there's things like compensation preclusion periods, seasonal work preclusions, and what's called the newly arrived residents waiting period. So a number of things that could apply. I'm not going to go into the specifics of these today, but if you are thinking that one or more of these could apply to you, once again, please visit our website, contact us, or make contact with the Financial Information Service so that we can discuss it further with you. If you have a disability, illness or injury, what you may be eligible for will depend on your health conditions. You may qualify for a disability support pension if you're unable to work because of a permanent physical, intellectual or psychiatric condition. To qualify, you need to actually meet both medical and non-medical rules. You can actually use our online pre-claim guide that's available on our website to help work out if you might be eligible for DSP. If your health condition is short-term and you're unable to do your usual work or study, you could potentially qualify for Jobseeker payment with a medical exemption instead. If you're caring for someone who needs daily support, you may be eligible for carer payment, carer allowance, and also carer supplement. Carer payment is an income support payment for individuals who provide constant care to someone with a disability, medical condition, or an adult who is aged and frail. Your rate of payment will be affected by both your income and assets, and there's also an income and asset limit for the person that you're actually caring for. You can still work while receiving carer payment, and there's now rules that are in place where you can actually work up to 100 hours of work in a 4-week period. But of course, the income that you received would be reportable and could reduce what we pay you. Carer allowance is an additional fortnightly payment or allowance that is income tested, but not asset tested. To be eligible, your family income needs to be below $250,000 a year. You can actually get both carer payment and carer allowance at the same time if you are eligible for both. And lastly, around the caring side of things, we have carer supplement, which helps with the costs of caring for someone and is an annual payment made in July of up to $600. So if you're receiving, for instance, both carer payment and carer allowance, you might actually qualify for 2 carer supplements. If you've reached age pension age, which is 67, you may be eligible for the age pension. You need to be residentially qualified and will be assessed against our income and asset test, like pretty much every payment we have. It's important to note that it is possible to still be working and earning an income and still be eligible for age pension. If you have children, parenting payment is the main income support payment if you are a young child's main carer. To get this payment, you need to be the principal carer of a child under 14 if you're single, or under 6 if you have a partner. If you do have a partner, only one of you can receive parenting payment. It's actually a separate payment from family tax benefit and paid parental leave, which is something that we'll be talking a little bit more about later on. So I've mentioned income and asset tests. There are a number of different ones. Most of our payments have an income and asset test that's part of determining the eligibility. We use assessable income, which could actually be lower than your actual income. That can be due to a number of factors around things like what's called deemed income for investments versus the actual rate of return, as well as a couple of other things. When we're looking at assets, we look at the current value, which could actually be reduced if the asset has money owing on it. So what is income? Income includes a whole range of different things. So this isn't an exhaustive list, but some of the things it includes. Gross earnings from employment, pretty obviously. Overseas income, including foreign pensions, can include some income stream income, so from things like defined benefits or market-linked pensions, can include net rent from real estate, net farm or business income if you have that. Also includes deemed income in financial investments. If you're involved in a trust or company, there can be distributions from that, compensation, as well as other things. So one of the important things that I say to people is don't self-assess, contact FIS on 132 300 and have a chat to us. So let's look at an example of one of the income tests we have. So we'll look at the income test for pension payments to see how they work. First of all, we'll have a look if you're single. There's what's called an income-free area, which means if your income is less than $212 a fortnight, it has no impact. Sorry, actually it's 218, I'll get it right. I've used an old figure for some reason, not sure why. $218 in a fortnight. If your income is above that $218, your rate of payment gets reduced by 50 cents for every dollar over it until you reach the cutoff point of $2,575.40 in that fortnight. If you're a member of a couple, the principle's pretty much the same, but the amounts are a little different, and I'll get them right this time. You can earn a combined $340 a fortnight before seeing any reduction in your rate, and that cutoff point is $3,934 in the fortnight. There may be times in retirement where members of a couple may not be able to live together due to ill health, such as admission to an aged care facility. In these cases, we may actually pay both you and your partner a single rate of payment. That's to help you meet the increased cost of expenses that come with living apart. Being that your rate of payment is higher, your individual cutoff point will also be higher as well. Living separately from your partner is always something you need to talk to us about. So, as always, make sure you keep us informed of your circumstances and advise us of any changes. We've talked about income. What about assets? So when we look at assets, we typically look at the value of any asset that you own, both in and outside of Australia. Some of these can include things like motor vehicles, home contents and personal effects, and financial assets. Your financial assets include things like bank accounts, loans, super, shares, bonds, that sort of stuff. Other assets that are also assessed can include real estate. So if you have investment properties, we will also potentially look at the value of the property in which you live if it is on land that exceeds 5 acres. That can be a bit more complicated though. You'd need to talk to us about that specifically. We also look at the value of farms, businesses, collectibles, and gifting. With gifting, there's actually what's called a gift-free area of $10,000 in a financial year, or $30,000 over a 5-year rolling period. So once again, for more info, please talk to our FIS team or visit our website. When valuing assets, we're looking at the current value for the financial investments you have, such as bank accounts, super, shares, etc. For other assets like motor vehicles and home contents, we generally accept your estimate of it. With real estate, we may accept your estimated value, or we could conduct further checks to determine the value. We may also arrange for a formal valuation of the property if it was required. If that was to take place, it's at no cost to you. To keep your record up to date, specifically around the real estate side of things, we also apply an annual indexation to the value of your real estate. If you have any farming assets, we'll generally ask for the current market value of any stock, plant, and equipment. It's important that when there's any significant change, it's your responsibility to notify those changes in values, etc., within 14 days of that change happening. So what assets don't we include? Usually, your home in the surrounding 5 acres is an exempt asset, and as such, it's not included in the overall picture of your assets. However, and I touched on this a second ago, anything over the 5 acres, if you're on an acreage or the like, may count as an asset. In some situations, that can also be exempt under what's called the extended land use test. This can depend on your age, how long you've lived on the property, what you're doing with the land, all that sort of stuff. So it's best to have a chat with us directly about your individual circumstances. Don't assume that you're not eligible for a payment without checking in with us first. Additionally, you can have what's called a temporary vacation from your principal home for up to 1 year, and we'll not include it in the assets test. So this is usually when you go traveling around the country or you're holidaying. After that year, however, the home may become an assessable asset. Additionally, if you permanently enter an aged care home, normally your principal home is exempt from that asset test for 2 years from the day that you vacate it and enter care. In both of these situations, if you rent your home, the income will be included. Some other assets that we don't count, lump sum accommodation payments for residential care facilities, prepaid funerals, cemetery plots and funeral bonds. Well, funeral bonds up to a value of $15,500, I should clarify that. And also money that's placed in what's called a special disability trust, though this is subject to reviewed capped amounts and various changes. Superannuation is also exempt from the asset test for people and their partners where the person who has the fund is underage pension age, providing you haven't transferred the fund into what's called an income stream. So we've looked at the income and asset test. Which one applies? Well, we determine your rate of payment under both the income and asset tests. What this means is we assess both your assets and your income, pretty obviously. We then compare the two tests against each other, and the lower rate of payment is the one that is applied. So if your assets are higher than your income, we'll pay you under the asset test. If your income is higher than your assets, we pay you under the income test. The comparison then happens each time you update your details with us. So if there's changes to your income or your assets. Obviously, as I've said a couple of times, you're required to provide notification of significant changes to us within 14 days of any change. So additionally, when we sort of look at that switching between the two tests, a person's rate can change from the income test to the asset test and back semi-regularly, depending on their level of income or assets. This would be particularly sort of prevalent for anyone that was working with varying income. So if you're working part-time or casually, you could switch between the two depending on how much you earn. Notifying us of stuff. I've mentioned this a few times already. If you're receiving a payment or a service from either DVA or Services Australia, it's really important that you tell us about when your circumstances change. If you're receiving a service from both of us or from the various parts of Services Australia, so as in like Medicare, Centrelink, and or child support, you need to ensure that you tell all of the services, as some information is shared between them, but not everything. Keeping your details up to date isn't hard, but it needs to be done. Even simple things like changes to your address, your contact details, that sort of stuff. General rule of thumb, mentioned a few times, is that you need to notify of the change within 14 days of the change. This is important because if you delay, changes aren't always backdated. So if you should have got an increase in payment, it may not actually happen from the date the change occurred. Or if the change resulted in a reduction in your payments and you didn't notify us within that required time frame, it might actually mean that you've incurred an overpayment of some kind. So at this point, we've covered a lot of info and you're probably getting a little tired of my voice. So I'm going to hand over to Sam to continue our presentation and to finish us off for the day. Over to you, Sam.
Thank you very much, Philip. Hello, everybody. My name's Samuel. Like Phil, I work here in the Financial Information Service, and I'm speaking to you from Gumbaynggirr country in New South Wales today. I would also like to thank everybody for their patience at the beginning of the webinar. A few teething issues, but we are very glad to have you all with us. Now, we've spent quite a bit of time looking at returning to work or a change in employment, whether that be jumping straight in or perhaps learning something new beforehand. But the reality is that returning to civilian life or juggling your military career with your other responsibilities looks different for everybody. For example, some people may wish to start a family, may already have children with more on the way, and there's a range of supports and services available to you. So we're going to take a look at some of those now. We'll start with the family tax benefit, also known as FTB. Now, FTB is a two-part payment that helps with the cost of raising children. How much family tax benefit that you get depends on your situation. For example, whether you're partnered, if you have more than one child, if you share the care of your children, so on and so forth. To get this payment, you must have a dependent child or full-time secondary student aged 16 to 19 who isn't getting their own payment. You must be caring for the child at least 35% of the time, and you must meet an income test. This payment is unique in that you can choose to get family tax benefit either annually or fortnightly. Though keep in mind that at the end of each financial year, we'll make sure that you've been paid the right amount by comparing your estimated family income to your actual family income. You have 1 year from the end of each financial year to confirm your income for family tax benefit or to claim it as that annual lump sum. If you're receiving another type of payment from us, you can also ask for the family tax benefit to offset that payment, meaning that you can have your FTB paid on the opposite week to your income support payment. So this can often help with things like budgeting, regular bills, etc. And if you are paying rent, you may be eligible for rent assistance in addition to your family tax benefit. If this is the case, rent assistance is generally paid alongside FTB Part A rather than an income support payment and is usually paid at a higher rate. If you do have any questions about family tax benefit, give us a call and we can go from there. Now, parental leave pay can be paid while you care for a child who is newly born or adopted. To receive the payment, you must be caring for or have adopted a child. You must meet an income and a work test, meet residence requirements, and not be working on your paid parental leave days, though there are some allowable reasons depending on your circumstances. Now, most importantly, if the child is a newborn, you must have registered or applied to register your child's birth with your state's or territory's birth registry. This payment cannot be made if this hasn't been done. And again, as with all our payments, you can learn more about parental leave pay on our website or by contacting us. Now, for those of you that do already have children, they may be attending a childcare service. If so, it's important to check childcare subsidy has been claimed and that you have confirmed your child's enrolment. You should speak with your childcare service if you need to change that enrolment information at all, and ask them to submit the new enrolment information with us so you can confirm it online. If you haven't claimed childcare subsidy yet, you can do this using your online account. We can only pay childcare subsidy direct to your childcare service once the claim has been approved and once you've confirmed those enrolment details. Before confirming the enrolment details, you'd want to make sure that they match your complying written arrangement, also known as a CWA. The CWA is an agreement between you and the childcare service, and it must be completed by the childcare service and includes details about the care sessions for your child and the fees involved. The person claiming the childcare subsidy needs to have the CWA with the childcare service. And again, I know I'm repeating myself here, but make sure that you do check in with us if you have any questions. Now, for parents who may have separated or are separating and are now sharing care of their children, you'll typically have some involvement with child support and the child support agency. Now, child support is not a government payment, but rather it's an amount of money paid between parents who are no longer in a relationship to ensure that both parents are meeting and contributing to the financial cost of raising their children according to their capacity to do so. Only money that has been paid by one parent will be sent to the other parent or carer. Child support helps parents understand how much child support they need to pay or are entitled to receive and can help transfer payments between parents. The amount of child support that a person is to pay or receive is generally calculated using a formula that considers both parents' incomes and the number of nights that each parent cares for the child or children. There may be occasions during your child support journey where you're asked to provide evidence to support or contest a claim that either you or the other parent has made. For this reason, it's incredibly important that you keep a record of information pertaining to the care arrangements of your children and any payments made or received between yourself and the other parent. I will stress that the notes don't necessarily need to be kept in any particular form, whether it's in a diary or bank transfers, etc., conversations, text messages, phone calls, but whatever it is, it's easier than relying solely on your memory. Now, whether the separation was recent or some time ago, amicable or perhaps not, separation has a big impact on your life and your finances. Things will change and adjustments will need to be made, and that's absolutely going to be difficult. Child support is an important piece of the puzzle when separating and managing your finances. We encourage you to look at information available on our website, contact us if anything changes, try to budget to those circumstances as best you can, and ask for help if you need it. Now, you can generally choose between 3 options to pay or receive your child support, and in most cases, you can change these at any time. The Child Support Agency can collect and distribute payments on your behalf. You can arrange private collection of the determined child supports with the other parent, just among yourselves, or you can self-manage the care of your children without the involvement of child support at all. Though if you do choose to do this, you could receive a lower amount of the family tax benefit. It is always best to speak with the child support agency directly to ensure that you fully understand your options. Changes to your existing child support assessment, including changes to the care arrangements themselves, can be made through MyGov in your child support online account, or you can give us a call. There is a change of assessment in special circumstances process available to consider expenses that are out of the ordinary or special. Ordinarily, we'd be thinking things like children's braces or private school fees, though of course in a military career, this could mean a number of things. Don't hesitate to contact the child support agency to discuss the change of assessment process if you believe that you or your ex-partner are being assessed incorrectly, or if you have any questions about your particular circumstance. I mentioned just a moment ago that family tax benefit can be affected by child support arrangements, and this is a process called the maintenance action test. This test ensures that reasonable action is taken to obtain child support for a child from a previous relationship for customers that are claiming the family tax benefit. Now, you can meet the maintenance action test by having a child support assessment made by a child support agency, have a valid exemption in place, or be in the process of applying for the assessment or the exemption. There is a period for you to decide how to take maintenance action, and we call this the deciding maintenance action period. It's typically 13 weeks from the later of the date that the child was born or entered your care, the date that you separated from the other parent, the date that your percentage of care increased from that 35% or more, or the date that you first became eligible to apply for child support. If you don't apply for child support or a valid exemption, your rate of family tax benefit A will be limited to a base rate, which can then impact your eligibility for some of those add-ons like rent assistance or a healthcare card. Parents paying child support meet the maintenance action test by being the paying parent. Now, we can discuss your situation with you as you may be eligible for an exemption from meeting the maintenance action test, depending on your circumstances again. In some cases, these exemptions may need to be assessed by a social worker, but we'd let you know if that was applicable to you. We've spoken quite a bit there about raising children and child support, so we'll have a bit of a change of pace now. But again, remember, you can contact us if you have any questions about the information we're sharing. If you're not eligible for a payment, or perhaps you don't actually even need one for the time being, you may still be eligible for some other services such as concession, healthcare, or veteran cards. Some cards, such as the pensioner concession card, are automatically issued to you depending on the type of payment you receive, whereas other cards, like the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card or the Low Income Healthcare Card, can be claimed depending on your circumstances. All of these concession cards or healthcare cards will provide discounts on medication covered under the Pharmaceutical Benefit Scheme, but you may also find that your local, state or territory government, councils or local businesses may offer you a wide range of concessions as well, from free vehicle registration and utilities discounts to free cups of coffee or maybe a cheaper schnitzel at the RSL, who knows? Like Services Australia's pensioner and healthcare cards, the Department of Veterans Affairs may issue you with a veteran card, and there are 3 types of cards available. The Veteran White Card is a treatment card for veterans for accepted service-related injuries or conditions. What additional treatment you'll get with the White Card will differ depending on your type and the time of your service. The Veteran Gold Card is a treatment card for veterans, dependents and eligible civilians. It provides clinically needed treatment for all medical conditions within Australia. And the Veteran Orange Card is for Commonwealth and Allied veterans of the Second World War. It gives access to concessions for prescriptions, wound care products and nutritional supplements. Again, which card you may be eligible for depends entirely on your circumstances. So in this case, it's best to speak to the Department of Veterans Affairs directly, and they will be able to give you some help. Now, seniors who can't receive a pension due to their income and their assets may then be able to claim a Commonwealth Seniors Health Card in place of the pensioner concession card. This income test for this particular card has a higher cutoff point. Holding this card will grant you concessions on medication and will often mean cheaper visits to medical professionals. The income test for this card considers the adjustable taxable income for both you and your partner for the applicable financial year. Your adjustable taxable income is the sum of your taxable income, so from employment, total in investment losses, foreign income, reportable super contributions, and employer provided fringe benefits of more than $1,000. The income test also considers any deemed income from the current balances of superannuation income streams, which is then added to your adjustable taxable income. The best way to test your eligibility is to make a claim for this card. The current income limits for the card are on the screen now. And as you can see, they do differ whether you're single, partnered, or a couple living apart due to illness. As Phil has mentioned earlier on, all of our rates and thresholds are subject to change. So again, it is important that you visit our website for current information. Depending on your circumstances, you could also test your eligibility for a low-income healthcare card. For this concession card, we look at the last 8 weeks of your gross income to determine if you'd meet the income test requirements. The current income limit for the low-income healthcare card is $797 per week for a single person, or $1,362 per week for couples. These limits can also be higher if you have one or more dependent children. And as with the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card, these thresholds are subject to change. Safe to say, I think, that there are lots of different payments and service options available. And sometimes it's tricky to know where to start or which one may be best suited to you. So on our website, we have a very handy tool called the Payment and Service Finder. This is an online service that will ask you questions about your circumstances and then make suggestions on what payments and services you may be eligible for. You can also use our online estimators to calculate potential payment amounts and see how a change in your circumstances may affect your payments. If you decide to make a claim for one of these payments and services, the best way to do it is online via my.gov.au, though this can look different depending on your own circumstances. For example, retirees can submit a claim for the age pension up to 13 weeks prior to turning age pension age, and if you are already receiving a Centrelink income support payment, we would write to you 9 weeks before turning age pension age to outline your options. Documents to support your claim can be supplied online by uploading them to your account using the document lodgement service. And if you do claim online, you can track your progress of your claim using your online account, so there's no need to call or visit us at a service centre. And if for any reason you can't claim online, or if it's just simply not your cup of tea, you can give us or DVA a call or visit a Services Australia service centre for some other options. It is necessary for Services Australia and DVA to make sure that people claiming a payment or service are who they say they are. So for this reason, claimants must provide their proof of identity in person and will generally only need to do this the once. Claimants must also verify their assets and their income with supporting documentation. So we're talking things like bank statements, tax returns, superannuation schedules, share certificates, and so on. You can visit Services Australia's website if you're uncertain about what documents to provide. When you make a claim, you will be given instructions on which documents are needed, and our digital assistant is always available to give you some help. Now, no matter what your circumstances, whether you're working, whether you're transitioning between employers, or if you're returning to paid employment after having time off, say with a child or illness, your employer will give you what's called a standard choice form. This sets out your options regarding your superannuation. You can choose your existing fund, an employer's fund, or a different fund altogether. When you're comparing super funds, you'd want to weigh up fund performance and the fees that you'll pay against other factors, such as risk, returns, services and insurance. And this will help your super have a healthy retirement savings balance. Remember to check that your new employer is paying the correct contribution amount and that it's being paid into the correct fund, particularly if you have one that you like to stick with. Now keep in mind though that superannuation has very strict rules and conditions that need to be met before it can be accessed. Access to superannuation can occur in a few different scenarios. The main ones being that you've turned 65 years old or have reached your preservation age, and you meet a condition of release, such as retirement. Another option may be to set up a transition to retirement strategy, where you continue to work preservation age, but start to wind back those hours as you ease into those retirement years. Superannuation can also be accessed in certain special circumstances, like financial hardship or under medical or compassionate grounds. However, it is important to remember that these payments may be subject to taxation and that the amount you can access is limited depending on your circumstances. We do have a few different webinars that speak in more detail about things like superannuation and financial fitness, income streams, etc. So I would encourage you all to visit the Services Australia website or our YouTube channel and watch these if this is something you'd like to know more about. Alongside superannuation is insurance, which can generally be placed into one of three categories. Life cover pays a lump sum payment or an income stream to your beneficiary if you pass away or are diagnosed with a terminal illness. Total and permanent disability or TPD insurance will pay a benefit to you if you become seriously disabled and are unable to work again. And income protection will pay a regular income for a predetermined time frame if you are unable to work due to a temporary disability or illness. Now, most superannuation funds will automatically provide you with life cover and TPD insurance, whereas others may automatically provide you with income protection insurance. So it's important to double check what it is that your particular fund offers, because the premiums are paid out of your superannuation balance. And I think we can all agree we don't want to be paying for something that we may not actually be using. These insurances can also be sourced from other providers outside of superannuation companies, but you would need to compare the level of cover, the conditions of cover, and the cost of those premiums. We've bombarded you with a lot of information today, lots to take in. So now is a good time to go through and take a look at some tools that can really help make sense of some of this information. And the first one is MoneySmart. MoneySmart is an Australian government website that cuts through the jargon to help you take control of your money. It can provide you with simple tips, calculators and guides on everything from budgeting and super to investing and understanding your options in retirement and other stages of life. If it involves money, you will find it on MoneySmart. There are also plenty of places that can give you a hand in a tough spot. You can access 24/7 counselling and support by calling 1-800-RESPECT. You can access advice on family issues and separation on the Family Relationship Advice Line, and access free legal aid with National Legal Aid. As Phil has mentioned, there is also Open Arms. This is a service that is available to all veterans and their families. So please take the time to note these down and visit their websites to learn more about them. And in addition to these few select organisations, you can find an incredible range of support services using Ask Izzy. Simply visit askizzy.org.au, pop in your location, and Izzy will point you to all of the help available near your location. And the beauty of Izzy is that she is available anytime, night or day, to lend you a hand if it is needed. And I know this is a cliche, but it is important that if you ever do find yourself in need of urgent help, that you act upon that. Don't put it off, don't wait. Free financial counselling, legal advice and money help are always available, and they can be found using some of the resources we've spoken about today, and there are others out there as well. For any debt troubles, you can also contact the National Debt Helpline as detailed on the screen now. Again, I know it's a cliche, but it is always okay to ask for help if you find that you need it. And speaking of help, self-service is the easiest way for people to complete their business with us. Now, you can manage most of your Medicare, Centrelink and child support information online or by phone self-service. And a MyGov account lets you link a range of the Australian government services, such as Centrelink, DVA, the Australian Taxation Office, etc., with one username and one password. So you can access everything you need in the one place. If you require assistance with accessing, creating or linking services to your MyGov account, you can find more information by selecting the help button at my.gov.au or calling the MyGov help desk on 132 307 and selecting the appropriate option. A MyGov digital assistant is also now available for customers who may need help when using MyGov. And like Izzy, the digital assistant is available any time of the day or night from a desktop or a mobile device, so you can use it at a time that suits you. And some of you may want or need a little or perhaps a lot of help when dealing with us here at Services Australia. You can authorise a person or an organisation to do this. The type of arrangement that you choose will depend on what you need. For example, a correspondence nominee can ask us questions about your payments and services, tell us about changes in your circumstances and update your income and asset details, complete claims for payments and services and respond to requests for information, complete and sign forms and statements on your behalf, and they can receive copies of your letters. They can also use the online guides to help complete these tasks for you online. On the other hand, nominating a person or organisation as a payment nominee means that your Centrelink payments will go into their nominated bank account rather than yours, so they can help you manage your money. Veterans Affairs will also have similar processes involved if you need help. So again, you can give them a call and have a chat with them. And of course, the Financial Information Service is always here to help. As Phil said earlier, the Financial Information Service is a free and confidential service available to all Australians. You do not need to be in receipt of a payment. You do not need to be planning to claim a payment. We are available no matter your circumstances. A Financial Information Service officer can help you build your skills to make informed financial decisions, help you understand the results of your decisions in both the short and the long term, and they can help you take control of your finances to increase your lifestyle choices. You can speak to us here at the Financial Information Service in several ways, and there's always an option to suit. To get started, give 132 300 or any Centrelink number a call and say Financial Information Service when asked why you're calling. We'll aim to resolve your inquiry over the phone, but we can also book either a face-to-face or a video chat appointment if your circumstances are perhaps a little more involved, complex or sensitive. You may also find us out and about in your local community, speaking at expos or providing information at stalls, including Australian Defence Force transition to retirement seminars. And of course, we regularly host our live webinars such as this one here. And again, you can visit our website to see what other topics are available. And lastly, on the screen now are some of the many other services available to help you no matter your situation. For example, if you have more questions regarding aged care and home care, you can make an appointment with one of our aged care specialist officers by calling 1800 227 475. And like the Financial Information Service, this is a service available to all Australians. And if you need to talk with someone because you're dealing with a difficult situation, Services Australia does also have social workers that can assist you. You would simply need to call 132 850. And remember, Open Arms is available for veterans and their families. And that brings us to the end of today's event. Phil and I would like to thank you all for your attendance and your patience at the beginning there. Again, we appreciate that. And we hope the information in this webinar has been helpful to you. You can watch this event and other previous webinars by visiting our website or our YouTube channel, and there is always future topics and events to attend. So keep an eye on our website. Take care, stay safe, and we will see you all next time.